Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake. I'm joined in the virtual studio by two chaps who are of the most exceptional variety, Sambo and Johnny. How are we, lads?
Good.
Pretty good, yeah. I'm pretty good. Been a long
Yeah.
ass day at work, but apart from that, I'm good.
Pretty much
Yep.
the same. Good.
Absolutely. That's good.
Can't
Yeah,
complain.
no, look. And if you did, no one
None
would
listen.
listen. we need like a studio audience saying that. It can
Yep.
become like a catchphrase to open the show. No one would listen. And some sort of
Absolutely.
zany music to go with it. On the show tonight, we all know what we're here to discuss. It is the final men's recap of the 2024 season. So lots of emotions wrapped up in that. The Cats v Lions, it's ended one game before we all hoped it would. But I think we can also say it went on maybe a few games than a few of us might have hoped it would or might have guessed it might. So we are going to recap all of the action from the Cats v Lions prelim final. If you were a neutral, it was no doubt a pretty fantastic final, much better than the milk toast operation that was served up on Friday night. So we're going to get into all that. We'll duck over to Patreon at the end of the show. Don't know exactly what we're going to discuss there. It might just be a flow on of the conversation. Here, we usually run over time anyway, so it'll just be a way for us to grab any extended thoughts for our Patreon subscribers. Before we jump into the show, chaps, we've got to say a massive thank you to our media network sponsor here at the Hoops Crew, Cyril Cook Florist. You can visit their website, www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. You can phone them up on 035 222 2244. Or if you want to make use of the Hoops Crew discount offer, you can go over to Shop 12 at 11 Leather Street in Breakwater. Walk on into Cyril Cook Florist and tell them that the Hoops Crew sent you, and you will get a 20% discount off your next in-store purchase. If you know a Cats fan that's hurting at the moment, maybe it's a good idea, good opportunity. Send them a nice bouquet of flowers. Hey, Hawks fans probably still need them. Port fans probably still need them. GWS fans, my goodness, they might need some commiseration flowers after pretty heartbreaking set of losses for them in the finals. But anyway, we want to say a massive thanks to Cyril Cook Florist, our media network sponsor. And now, chaps, we get into it. We rip the Band-Aid and jump in and talked about it, the game itself. Now, this is how it unfolded. I've got to do it as we usually do. The autopsy of how it all unfolded, blow for blow. The Cats, they dominated it early. They couldn't put it on the board. 4 behinds before the Lions got the first goal of the evening. 5:15 fixture works for me, chaps. I quite liked it. Charlie Cameron with the first goal. Jeremy Cameron answered almost immediately. Cameron's at both ends. Then it was Zach Bailey and Eric Hipwood for the Lions that pushed that lead out to 320 to 1-5-11 at the quarter time break. Geelong responded as they so often have this season and the last 20 years, chaps. A goal to Ollie Henry was answered with a goal to Logan Morris before the Cats went on a bit of a tear. 3 goals in a row. Sean Manor, Jeremy Cameron, Ollie Henry. The Lions pegged one back via the boot of Hugh McCluggage, but the Cats, they weren't done yet. Another hat-trick of goals. Brian Myers, Ollie Dempsey, and Brian Myers again. They couldn't kick a normal one for a patch there, chaps. They were just putting them in from all sorts of angles. And at halftime, Geelong went in up 8-7. 55 to 5-6-36 at the half. They got the first goal of the second half. Patrick Dangerfield running it into an open goal square early. Then the game just began to turn. Max Holmes had delivered that beautiful kick over the top to Dangerfield. And then we started noticing not so long after Holmes at the sideline talking to the doctors, Holmes getting worked on, and we thought, oh dear. And it was unfortunately a bit of a worst case scenario. The Lions climbed right back in. Callum Archie, Charlie Cameron, Kai Lohman, who was everywhere in this game. They all kicked goals to narrow it. The Geelong Cats got one back via the boot of Mark Blixarves, who was fired up. The Lions, though, the last flurry of scores, goals to Cam Rayner and Zach Bailey and a bunch of behinds, put them in front 10-10-70 to 10-8-68 at the final turn for home. Mitch Duncan came into the game at some point in the fourth quarter. I can't remember exactly when it was. Max Holmes was gone. Jack Henry did an ankle by the look of things or something. He was not at full strength. Reece Stanley, I think, did every joint, ligament and tendon in his body at one point or another. The Cats went down further. Goals to Callum Archie and Logan Morris looked midway through the fourth quarter to have maybe almost put this one on ice for the Lions. But this Cats team, Chaps, responded again. Goals to Ollie Henry twice in the space of, 5 minutes. One of them an absolute rip snorter. Had us all off the couch. That put Geelong in front with about 2 minutes 40 left. Unfortunately, just as the Cats were able to respond, so too were the Lions. They got 2 quick-fire goals. Callum Archie at the 25-minute, 17-second mark. Cam Rayner after 26 and a half minutes. Reece Stanley with about 40 seconds left stabbed a behind through that could have been a goal for the Cats, but I know I find it hard to ding Big Reese for that one. I mean, like I said, every bone, ligament, tendon, everything in his body was just seemed to be cramping up at that point. And the Cats fall at the last hurdle before the grand final, 12-13, 85 to the Lions, 14-11, 95. Sambo, opening statements, opening thoughts, and then Johnny, into yours.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Disappointing, I think, is the word that's obviously the most common one being thrown around at the moment. And I am, chronically disappointed. Like it does. I don't want to pretend for a second that it doesn't. But at the same time, it just felt weirdly fitting to me by the end of that game for that result, for that game, for that. I think going into the 2022 grand final, we talked about at the time, those stories that build up the week before leading into a final, definitely the grand final, but I think all the finals, they have their stories, the Jack Ginnivan stuff, the Ken Hinkley stuff, all that kind of stuff. And the stories for the maybe 72 hours prior to this game, we did our pod, and I was feeling really good in our pod. And I was probably overly confident in the podcast. I don't know how I came off, but my feeling was super. And I think I actually said at the time that this wasn't necessarily indicative of how I'd feel on the day. But at the time, I just felt like we were unstoppable. But then slowly creeping in across the days towards just the 2 days, and definitely the day before, it just felt like the narratives weren't that. It felt to me like if we win this, it's against the narratives. Max Holmes is crook. He's training away from everybody else. COVID has allegedly ripped through the staff and some of the assistants. Poor old Kingy, had a medical episode, which, thankfully they've said it's nothing life threatening, but was scary. And, all the reports talking about that. The thing I know was how he missed the game. Yeah, obviously wasn't able to be there. I think a couple. I'm not 100% sure, but I think because of the COVID stuff, there was a couple of other people who weren't able to attend. Not like assistant coaches, but other people in the thing. And all the reports about the King incident, I just noticed how many people were talking about how rattled the players looked.
Mm.
And like people, these are professional athletes. You can shake off all kinds of stuff, and move on. it can go the other way where it can be like, I do it for Kingy. You know, it's like the Levi Ablett going out onto the field in 2022. You know, these kinds of things. Or the Ken Hinkley, do it for Ken Hinkley the week prior for Port, I think. So that players can overcome it, but it felt to me like I just had these narratives forming in my head of this kind of like, oh, this could, and I did honestly feel like it could be a dog's breakfast, that Max Holmes could have been a late out. You know, obviously King wasn't there to coach the midfield, rah rah rah. Maybe Tom Stewart. I was starting to go, maybe Tom Stewart's not actually fit. They're just saying he's fit because they want to. And so with all that in mind, the fact that we really could have won that game felt pretty good. Like we've talked about before, whether you'd rather be flogged or lose by a kick or two. And I do think there's an argument to say that it hurts more to lose a close game, but I actually like that we took the lead. Like I actually like that, although it was such a roller coaster with that Ollie Henry goal, for all of us to jump up and scream and hug and all that kind of stuff, and then to have that taken out from under us. That's brutal, but it's still, I guess, just overall fills me with so much pride that we still could have possibly stolen that one. And I think there's so many thoughts, but the last thing I would say is it does kind of feel fitting for the year. Not that we lost, but that I feel all year, and I'm sure other people may laugh at me or whatever, but I feel like the narrative of this year is we have almost been the best team in the league all year. Yeah. And and only a couple of things that have to go, a couple of kicks in those close losses where we went 4 losses in a row, and a couple of the losses were bad, but a couple of them were so close. It kind of, and this isn't me saying, oh, boo-hoo us and we were better than Brisbane or anything like that. It just kind of felt like absolutely crushing to lose that game. But at the same time to go, we almost could have won this. And I think we really almost could have gone on and won the next one. But the fact that we didn't also doesn't feel that far beyond being appropriate, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough to take the first few minutes after the game, and going into work the next day, everyone was like, "Oh no, how you feeling? You're a bit sad." I said, "No, I'm actually perfectly fine with this." Because I just
vented all your venom during the game.
Yeah, I did. And also I just told the people at work, I go, "Well, I just think of the 4 premierships we've won this century already." I go, "There's not much more this team needs to do to prove to myself and all, I think, other Cats fans that they're really good. They're a fantastic team." And then seeing this new team, these young guys out there playing the first final series, get to a prelim and get within 10 points of a premiership. It's just like, it's disappointing in the moment, but when you step away from it and have a think about it, there's not much to be disappointed in. But the way they went about it, it's like there's so much promise built on these young guys coming through. So much promise on Lawson Humphries, Shannon Neal, Ollie Henry, Manor, Brian Myers still close. Like these guys are going to be in the next big thing for the Cats, and to see all those guys step up throughout the entire game and do everything they could possibly do to get us over the line, it's just like, yeah, they're definitely all in on this team. And I also thought, what would Chris Scott be thinking now, like saying to the team right now? He wouldn't be going, "Oh, we've blown a massive chance." I think he sort of rooted that, we had this opportunity, but I don't think he's going to let the players dwell on it. He's not going to go, "Let's review it heavily and work it all out." It's just like, this happened. We need to review it a little bit, but move on. And I think that's why Chris Scott's such a good coach, because he can so easily get the players to process the disappointment, but then move on to the next big thing when it's appropriate. Which obviously is going to take a while for players, like getting that close and just falling short by 10 points. It'll be pretty difficult to get over that quickly. Like it's going to take a few weeks for the players, obviously, especially knowing that we're not going to see Hawkins and Tui next year.
Yeah.
That's also going to weigh pretty heavily on a few players that they weren't able to give them one last chance. But overall, I'm definitely the same as what you said, Sam. Just super proud of what this club achieved this year. When all the narrative was, we're not going to make finals. We're not good enough to make the finals. To make the finals, we're just there
Straight
to fill the
sets,
numbers.
straight sets.
Yeah, fill the
Worst team in
numbers.
the 8.
Worst in the 8. Straight sets straight away. We're not going to beat anyone in this final series, and to absolutely destroy Port Adelaide at the home was just beautiful. And then to get within 10 points of a team that everyone had nailed down as one of the premiership favourites from the start of the year it was good. And with a team that is so starkly different from 2022 in so many ways.
When did Ollie Henry? Sorry, just quickly on that. When did Oliver Henry jump over? When did he join?
Last year.
So that's by my count. That's 8 people.
8 or 9.
I heard 9 reported. I can't find the 9th by my maths, but it's 8.
I think I said 9. I must have miscounted, but I think it's 8.
Someone definitely said in the rooms in the interviews after the game, they said there was 9 players, but I can't find the 9th.
Manor, Dempsey, Ollie Henry,
Bruin, Bowes, Mullen,
Humphreys,
Manor.
Mullen,
Neil.
So I've got
8.
Yeah, I've got 8. But regardless, 8 players that were not there the last time we played finals. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the champions that we're missing and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to, because the other thing, I like the Cats' successful winning mentality. Like, I don't want it to come across as if we're satisfied and we go, well. Like, it's not that. Like,
we wanted that win.
We really wanted it, and the next one.
I was telling everyone at work, Cats will win. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
We're going to get through Brisbane. We'll be fine. Like, I had no doubt in my mind we were going to win.
Yeah.
I was very confident, and as I said on the pod, like 5 minutes before the game, I will be really nervous, and I was really nervous 5 minutes before the game, and throughout that game, and even when with a minute 20 left, I still thought there's a chance that we can still win this. Even when they kicked us their second goal, I was like, we still got this. There's still a chance. It's just it's always a chance. Never say never.
Exactly.
As the great Bieber says.
Well, yeah, like I mean that's our opening salvos, Jake. What's the next launching off point? Did you have
what's your first salvo?
True. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you have more thoughts to add to the opening?
Well, I really do want to sort of get into a little bit of like how the game sort of unfolded, like a little bit of, because we don't want to go on about this for weeks and weeks, like, but I do want to talk a bit about that.
Too damn bad.
Yeah. I just, as in the actuality of it, I don't want to discuss it too much. It is painful. They do hurt. So before we get into that nitty gritty, I did want to talk to the people who are going to be jumping in the comments, and you'll be there on this video too, saying, oh, you got owned. Oh, you just, found out you were pretenders all along, suck shit, all that sort of stuff. And you'll be here. And thanks for the clicks and the views. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Where was your team in the finals, by the way?
The YouTube money goes up every week. But I wanted to say this, is that I know you don't feel scared, but you are. And that's the difference between being us and being you, is that you are so scared of getting here that you'd rather not, and you'd rather just take shots at the 4 teams who get there and then they fail because they made a prelim and they lost. Get fucked is what I would say, because I actually was extremely proud, and this is going to sound weird, of Brisbane. Very weird. But we, of all clubs, know how hard these are to win. And you look at Brisbane, You look at Port, they've been to tons. Port haven't won a flag since 2004. That was roughly the time like Facebook was invented. They haven't been back apart from 2007. Brisbane, like, have got close last year. Sydney, they put up the stat during the Friday night game that John Longmire has made, I think, 5 grand finals in the AFL era. He's one of only 4 or 5 coaches to have done so. He's come away with 1 flag so far. This is hard. So it's okay. And you're going to type your stuff because you are scared and you don't want to be hurt. But I just tell this, there's been a few people on Twitter saying, that their kids went to that game last night. And, I've seen lots of posts like this, that it was a hard loss to take for some really young Cat supporters. And I guess I remember being that young Cat supporter. And
Yep.
I just want to reiterate to them, it is the old Shakespeare thing. It is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. It is better to have got to a prelim and lost it than to have never made it all. Do you want to be one of those fans of a club that sits on the sidelines when the real teams are going at the end of the season and you're sniping about some, round 11 victory you had over one of the teams that actually put themselves in position to contend? No, you don't. You want to be here where it hurts, because here where it hurts is also when it's absolutely magnificent. Like that moment last night when Ollie Henry kicked his goal, the 4 of us were up off the couch. We were hugging, arms around. Incredible. And it was one of my favorite moments of the whole season. It was followed by one of the most painful. But I want to be there. I want to be there next year and the year after and the year after that. I want to be here where it hurts, because that's where you win the flags. You don't win them finishing outside the 8, collecting your friggin' draft picks and rebuilding and retooling and sacking all your veteran players. That's not where it is. It's here where it hurts with the real clubs. So stick with it, young Cats fans. And there'll be people out there who take the piss out of you because, your club's been successful the whole way. There are plenty of people in our audience who have said at different times, I've actually only seen us win 1 flag. I only remember us winning 1 flag. I don't really remember 2011 because I was, young when that happened. Stick with it. You're going to go through some of these hard times, but this is where you want to be. You want to be here where it hurts, because that's where the joy is found too.
Yeah. I was going to say
let's talk about the game.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Little great Butters quote from South Park as well that sums up.
Yes, John.
The thing.
Follow my word with Butters from South Park. Do it.
Follow Shakespeare with
Butters. It's very similar to the Shakespeare one. Butters is just being broken up and he's crying and all sad and depressed. And someone goes, "Why are you crying so much, Butters? Why are you so sad?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not really sad. I'm sort of happy." And they're like, "Why are you happy but crying?" I said, "Well, I'm sad because someone broke up with me, but I'm also feeling happy because if something made me feel that sad and I'm crying, then it must have been a really good moment in my life. So I'm happy I had that moment to be sad about." And I think that's what we can take away from this game as well. Yes, we're sad, but
100.
there was that happiness that got us to that point to be sad. And as you said very nicely, Jake, that I'd rather have these moments where I'm very happy for the team. Yes, it could end in sadness, but that sadness comes from a place of a pretty fantastic spot to be in. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
the great poet
100%.
Butters.
I love it.
Butters. He's such a good character.
If you could take like 60 seconds from that encapsulates our show. It's transitioning from Shakespeare to South Park. That's the one. That's the way you do it. Let's dive into talking, chaps, just a bit about the specifics of the game. I don't want to dwell too long on it, but I think it's important to talk about, because as much as we can talk about, it was great, and there's, lots of positives to take away, we're going to get to all that. We've got to fill like the next 6 months of off season with talk about how great it was and how great it's going to be. But this evening, I think it's important to dive into it. Like, I'll just tee you up this way, I guess, and I don't mind who takes it first, but really, I thought we were probably beaten by the better team on the night, and it was in small moments that it happened. It was, a little bit of accuracy here. It was the ability to maybe adapt on the fly a little quicker than us. They lost their ruck. That could have sunk other teams, and they adapted very quickly and efficiently. What to you sort of stood out, I guess, first half to second half? We have that second quarter at 7 goals or whatever, 7 goals to 1. What changed for you guys, and where do you think that it was won, and where do you think it was lost ultimately?
I mean, obviously we will get into multiple different things, which is good because my point is multiple different ways in a very short amount of time. And it's I guess the narratives are kind of frustrating me a little bit in the media because as is their, I don't know, their want, I suppose. They try and boil it down to one thing. Like it's this. Like I've seen a lot of, Chris Fagan absolutely smashed Chris Scott in the coach's box. Or like just one thing. And it's like I'm not even saying that he didn't win the night as a coach. I'm just saying it's not just that. Like because they say that and then they show you vision, they go, look at Brisbane moving it so well through the middle. And you kind of go, yes, but you don't know. I mean, it may be, but you don't know that Chris Fagan told them to do that. It could be on the backs of players, and the players have to do it. And I suppose that's my point. That like, I think the night was. I don't know. I don't know which way to go. I don't know which way to go here, but I think the inaccuracies. Like, I think the night was lost early. In hindsight, like the killing blow was struck in 7 minutes, probably. And it's the Charlie Cameron, because when that was happening and it was just Johnny and I at the time, or maybe Jack was there. I don't think you got there
Jack
yet.
was there.
Jack was there, but you weren't there yet, Jake. And I sort of said to John, I said, maybe we cursed ourselves here talking about the Brisbane inaccuracy for the last 3-4 weeks. Have we written a bit of a poetic justice for ourselves? And like we had talked about with Brisbane last week, like it can't go that way all game. Like you can't keep missing them all game. And that was a matter of confidence to say that. We're going, yeah, it's true. And I said, but I hope we don't rue these ones. Like, and then there was another conversation and we were 4-0 and we went, we're really, if we could just kick. And I said, you watch Brisbane now turn around and kick a dirty one out the back. And it just happened. It just happened right then. And like we played well and all that kind of stuff and we moved on. But like when you look at it, I do think that spelled a lot of the way the game played out. Cats played really well. Cats fought really hard, but our execution let us down. I don't really blame Scotty. People are blaming Hawkins not being in. People are blaming I don't blame the selectors. I don't blame Scotty. Nah. I don't blame the effort or hunger or intensity from anyone. But and it's not just the goal accuracy. I think that just spells it out. Brisbane was so ruthlessly efficient when they got a sniff, and we just weren't as efficient. Whether it was a handball in the back half after a stoppage, or whether it was a set shot 30 out at a bit of an angle. I think we just, for whatever reason, we just weren't as ruthless. And they were, and that's good on them. But yeah, I think it's that's the thing that I'll throw to you, John. But that's the first thing I want to go with is just that execution. Even when we were playing well, from bounce to siren, our execution was off.
Yeah, as a commentator, I say there's moments in games that can win you the games, and Brisbane Lions took all their moments, and I think a few of our younger players sort of fell apart in the moments that they had. That's just
not just our younger
couldn't handle the moments.
Not to shit on people, but not just our younger players.
No, not just our young players. Like every player sort of had big moments that they could have taken, and they just just weren't able to take that moment. But that's footy. You got to take these big moments. Lions did, and we squandered a few. So, yeah, I agree with you, Sam. That definitely agree with you with that first part. And I think the second part was Max Holmes. I, I
Yeah.
think we all looked at each other when he was on the bench, and I don't think we said anything between ourselves.
I don't think
But
we
I
could bear to
sense,
at the time.
but I sensed a feeling going around the room of, oh no, how are we gonna get past this? And I just find it just utterly heartbreaking, devastating that the same game, same team, same injury, 2 years apart. Like if we'd gotten through and Max Holmes missed another grand final, I think that would be even more of a bitter pill to swallow than seeing us lose. Like having him miss out twice against with the same injury would be a big. That would be a hard take for so many fans because I
I
thought
would have taken it, to be honest.
I would have taken it, but it would have been tough. It would have been tough,
We've been tough for him for sure.
but yeah, I think he was such a big impact on the game for the Cats throughout that first half that missing him, we didn't have a player to replace him. I think, as I said to you lads, I think we've got the player that can play like Max Holmes in Lawson Humphreys, but he's only played 10 games. He's still nowhere near what Max Holmes is at, but I can see him playing a similar type of role. But in such a big game, we just didn't have that same dash, that same energy, the same closing speed, or just his ability to move out of a tackle and get into a really good position to deliver a really good ball to a player in a good spot, or just be brave enough to take on the game. And as soon as we lost him, it just felt like that little bit of spark, X factor in the midfield was lost. And I thought, yeah, that was a big, massive, massive loss for the Cats in the context of the game, especially where it was heading as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting to compare again just the differing fates of say Brisbane's injury, which was pretty horrific and like a
Yeah.
major part of their team. And this isn't again, I'm not trying to take anything away. I'm not trying to make excuses. Just watching it. Brisbane looked better after they
Yeah.
lost him. Like that's it's like
It's
the way and that could be a compliment to them. Maybe the way that I think the way they rolled with it and adapted and put Danaher back, it just all these things sort of fell into place. It was like, oh,
mm,
a smaller forward line and a more dynamic player in the middle actually really friggin' helped them.
it
So
really did.
yeah, I'm not
That's
trying to say that they were lucky or anything. Like they rolled
no.
with that punch so incredibly well.
I think any Lions fan will be going, would rather have McInerney in the ruck than Danaher. Obviously,
Yeah,
you would.
yeah,
But on the night when he's half injured, because remember we were talking about it going, it's not his rocking arm that's injured, it's the other one. I was like, but isn't that worse? Isn't the one where you're
your
actively
stabilizer.
wrestling with another guy worse than tapping the ball out? Wouldn't it? I've never had a shoulder dislocated, so I'm sure it'd be really painful to lift it up and try and tap a ball. But in my mind, it would seem less painful than trying to hold off a guy with a recently dislocated shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too that they I don't have seconds here. I don't have the stopwatch to know how the decision was made, and I know he went back out there and it popped out again, so I know they did
Mm,
persist with him. But it certainly felt like, again, going back to efficiency and ruthlessness, it felt like they made those changes a little quicker than we did. Like
yeah,
understandably, the Cats tried for a long time to keep Holmes in the mix, and
yeah,
while that was happening, the game slipped away.
wasn't
And
stopping. Yeah,
again, I'm not blaming anyone. I totally
no,
understand why you want Max Holmes back out there. And I'm not one of these talking heads that are saying they cost them the game, get him off, rip him off, put Duncan out there early. I don't know that it changes the fates because I don't think putting Duncan out there replaces Max Holmes.
oh,
But
definitely not.
again, just to use those two examples to contrast the two different teams on the night, the way they dealt with that injury and efficiently moved the bits and kind of like, came like a phoenix from the ashes came out of it.
Yep.
Whereas the Cats were so cagey about that decision. We were so desperate to hang on to plan A, that and like I said, I don't think we had a plan B for Max Holmes that we could have rolled into quicker and the game would have been differently, but just our approach to it was, was quite different. And yeah, like
I
again, you don't want to say, oh, it was that player. That player lost us the game. We would have won that game without that guy. But he was bog to that point for sure.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I think undeniably he was, and a team has to be more than one player. And I agree with that, and I wouldn't like other people making excuses when their player goes out either. And I think this is conceding a small issue with the Cats at the moment is that we are better than one player, but there is some players at the moment that are just so vitally important because of our development and our depth, which
Mm.
I think our depth long term is really good, but our depth for currently selectable players, eligible and ready to go, is a little shallow, I think, especially in those particular roles. Like, I would rather Dangerfield or Tom Stewart have been injured and gone out than Max Holmes. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that
Like,
is crazy.
Tom Stewart and
Oh, we got
Patrick Dangerfield are like
Duncan.
top 10 players in the league for me. But for as far as the role to the team, I think we can cover Stewart and Dangerfield more than we can cover Holmes.
Most
Well,
definitely.
Well, I think we've shown that this year. Danger was
Yeah.
out for a big stretch of that 7-game winning streak. Tommy Stewart has been out in games where we've won. We've shown we can cover, but it's been more difficult when Max Holmes has been injured.
Mm.
And it's why you pony up and give him the big contract extension that he got, because the Cats view him as the player that's worth that. I'll be honest, I didn't like the selection of Duncan as the sub. I just think he's
No,
way
me
too
neither.
limited
Yeah.
as a sub. And I'm not saying it was the be all and end all, but I probably honestly, and I know there'll be people out there who very vehemently disagree. If you weren't going to pick Sam de Koning as either in the side or the sub, I would have put Tui as your sub.
Yeah.
Tui can play a lot of different roles. Tui can slot in down across the back line, which he's done this year a couple of times, to play an intercepting defender to free Stewart up. He's played wing. He's played half forward at times. There are a number of ways you could have used him, and I would have liked Tui running in on goal for that one that, poor Mitch Duncan gets in that situation. He gets mown down. I'm not saying Tui wouldn't have, but I think Tui's still got a little bit more giddy up in the legs than what Duncan does. Not trying to dunk on Duncan, but just saying, I've heard, lots of talk on Twitter and that he's going to go around again. That would amaze me. Absolutely amaze me. I just think that the game style we're trying to play, I just don't know that. I don't know how that works. And I thought that was a little bit of a missed opportunity. Just to me, I would love to have a sub on the bench that either immediately gives you a Band-Aid for an area of need if you lose it. So say, like, if it was Sam de Koning as the sub, now if Stanley's getting, say, towelled up, or Blixarves goes down injured, or College Asney or someone, it's like, sweet, we've got a key position player, we slot him in, there we go. There's not a step off. Or you have a player that can play a number of roles for you. And I just think Tui could have been that. He's definitely not a perfect player at this end of his career, but I just think he would have been. I would have felt a lot better pulling that lever in the fourth term than the one we got to pull. And that's not a dig at Mitch Duncan. It's just the reality of where it's at.
Yeah, it makes
thought
me
there was
think that they were worried about something. That there was something that we may not know that they thought could have gone. And to be honest, that was the Tom Stewart thing, where I was like, this is his first game back. And they were, oh no, he's just pulled out for illness. Rah, rah. And we, it was kind of like, well, was it, or was it hamstring? When I saw Duncan as the sub, it kind of made me go, I wonder if they're thinking he's most likely going to have to come on for Stewart. In which case, like you said, I think Tui could also do that, but Duncan's probably the more obvious pick to come in and play a intercept
Down back.
down back. So like I don't know, but like without seeing behind closed doors, he like you said, you like those are the reasons you have a versatile player or you have a player that will fill a role that is likely going to come up. And I'm purely theorizing. And at the time, I was going, I wonder why, like what they're thinking, what the
Yeah.
reasoning is here, behind him being the sub. But go on, I interrupted you. You're going to make another point.
No, I was just going to make one last point. Then we should probably get to votes and get into the Patreon part of the show. But I was just going to say that there were some absolutely brutal finals lessons for some players, and
Yes.
I think they will be dramatically transformed by it. I thought Lawson Humphreys was a player that looked instantly at home. He has since he stepped into it. He
Absolutely.
has just looked
10 games.
ready for it.
That was game 10. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't it? He looks so
that's weird.
settled,
Yeah.
so composed. Just everything about him just sings absolute superstar into making. And like I said, I feel like he's got Max Holmes' abilities about him. He's got
Yeah.
speed. He's got composure. He's got dash, the ability to be able to quickly move side to side. And his kicking is probably what sets him a little bit apart from Max, but still, Max Holmes' kicking this season has improved from where it was at the start of the year to now. He's such a massive improvement and just shows what a great player Max is going to become, and I can't wait. But yeah, Lawson Humphreys, absolute superstar on the biggest stage in game 10. Incredible.
His defensive work too has improved out of sight. That one-on-one late, I actually went back in my mind as that ball was coming in. I flashed back to a game, VFL, I think round 11, up at the SCG against the Swans. Lawson Humphreys caught one-on-one with a forward running back towards goal. If the Swans get the goal, they probably go on and win it. Lawson Humphreys, walks the tightrope perfectly, gets his hand in to spoil it, doesn't give away a free. 90 seconds later, Lawson Humphreys, the player that bobs up and kicks the match winner from 50. Like we've seen just a transformation of that player from round one through to this game. He's sensational. I think he's the obvious Duncan replacement. He will now go on and do, I think, if he stays at the Cats long term, the Duncan things that Duncan used to do. When you go and watch the 2011 sort of era Cats, Duncan was so good at sort of not only doing things down back, but then sneaking forward and getting a classy goal. But just a couple of those lessons, I think Sean Manor, that shot for goal, I can't remember if it was in the third or early in the fourth. It was just a terrible decision. It was just an awful, awful decision. And I immediately felt awful for him because like the final stage is just brutally unforgiving because I'm pretty sure Sydney pretty quickly, went up the other end, and was scoring, not too long, 5-10 minutes like that's at least how I've got it in my head. The order of operations might be wrong. No, it was in the third term. You know what? It's in the third term. It was after 6.5 minutes. He has the behind, and 60 seconds later, Charlie Cameron goals at the other end. It was just cruel because he's been a player that's been so good, but I honestly think it'll be a very hard lesson that he'll learn quickly from. I think Ollie Dempsey is I imagine, probably going to work this offseason in how to stay involved in those kinds of games. I don't think it'd be the first time we'd have said that, sometimes when it is that finals-like atmosphere, not that he can't kick goals, he kicked an absolute ripper, but just like Dempsey's a player you want involved. You want to keep him involved because he's so clever and smart. So there'll be a number of players, younger and older, who I think will have things to learn from, and I'm sure they will. But yeah, I think now probably move on to votes, chaps. Wrap it up with talking about the best players. And
I know
please.
I was the one who wants to be done at a certain time, but do you want to do like just a quick dump, because we will come back and probably talk about things, but I just feel like there's things I'm going to miss, like a quick dump of things that we thought, Like they can be good. There's a couple of things left that I think were
Sure.
issues that I would just like to quickly
Go for it.
and one of them, and John probably would. I feel like this is the kind of thing John would mention as well, but it's definitely been plaguing me. Was the delivery inside 50?
Awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, we keep things positive here, and I understand the intent, and it did sometimes work out, but it felt a little bit like the definition of insanity. It just wasn't working, and we just kept. And there was a couple of times too, because sometimes when it's those long kicks into the square and it's not working, you kind of go, well, we don't know what else is on offer. Maybe it was just the best
Mm.
option they had. But there was probably half a dozen times that we saw, because it was a pan back, we could see what they had on, and there's Dangerfield down there sitting about 45 out with no one on him, waving his hands like he's lost at sea, and gets burnt. And this is, again, it's not just like Dempsey or inexperienced people. Myers, like the best delivery inside 50 in the competition, arguably, was burning these options. And that's how, again, that's how I know we want to get it long to Jezza or Henry or Neil. You want to do that. But to make that more effective, sometimes you've got to do something else to
Mm.
make the opposite, especially, and hats off to Brisbane, backlines that are working really well, which they were working really well. So you got to throw something else at them. So they're going to start second guessing themselves. Are they going to cut it short to Dangerfield? Are they going to work this in with a hand pass? Is he going to go for a shot from outside 50? Is he going to kick it long to but instead, you felt like Brisbane could probably have been walking off screen in their back line because they knew where that ball was going and
Yeah.
wander across someone there. Brisbane, the other thing, I think this is probably the most we've ever complimented an opposition side, but some of the off ball, just like simple shepherding that Brisbane were doing in the stoppages as well, but just to like legally keep people away from affecting the ball. It was so frustrating to watch someone in the middle pick it up and like Dangerfield or someone. It's not like they hip and shouldered him. They're just standing there.
No.
And so he couldn't
Getting away.
he couldn't get to them. And that just to me, yeah, that inside 50 delivery, like I feel like our shot efficiency was down. So who knows if they turn into goals. But I think it's been patchy all season, that. And then when it seems to be when the pressure's on, those bad habits creep in and we get it and we run it down the flank, doing this, some great hand passes and using people's speed and all that kind of stuff. And then we get it to 52 out and just thump it into the goal square to an out number. And everyone's ragging on young Neil because he's got to make those marks. How? He wasn't in a good position to get to the mark, and like he wasn't able to because of Brisbane. And then when he was in the contest, he was against 2 or 3 other people. So I just, I'm also not trying to rag on anyone individually, but I think people focusing on, Neil can't clunk marks when he was trying to take low percentage marks, as a young forward who's been thrust into it. So that, I don't know if either of you guys have some more things to done, but I probably had 2, but that was definitely one of them. It's just that we could have made that. We could have easily stolen 2 to 5 more easy shots at goal just by sometimes just cut it back. Oh, it's not gone long.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Do you,
very
Chaps?
frustrating to see
Sorry.
that. And then just a sort of lack of pressure that really dropped off when the Brisbane Lions had it. And then the open player in the middle of the ground, it's just like, how does that keep happening? How do they keep having a free player in the perfect spot in the center of the ground, and another player just runs past and gets an easy ball to go inside 50 for a really good delivery inside 50? So yeah, I thought the pressure sort of in that third quarter when it just dropped off pretty significantly. And I think that was just because the way Lions were able to control the ball, make us run around like headless chooks for a fair bit of the game, and they just were able to control it really well. Like they were in full control for a lot of that third quarter. And when we had it, we felt so rushed. Like we had to go so quick because there was so little time on the clock, but there was plenty of time, and
Jake said
didn't
that
use
during
it
the
wisely.
game too, like not only time on the
Yeah.
clock, but the pressure time where Jake said I think we've got more time than we think. Like when
Yeah,
we got the
and
ball, like
there's
we were
so
kicking
many
it as
times,
if we were being tackled.
and there's so many times where it's just like, just take that little breather, take another few steps, and pass it. That's finals footy. It's just the pressure's so much higher, so much more amped. It's just like we've got to get this chance, otherwise it may be too late. But yeah, it's just those moments, as we said, we just didn't take those moments.
Yeah. And it's so harsh. The microscope of finals is so
Yeah,
harsh. Not grand
those
finals. Did I say
small
finals or grand finals? Both
You
are
said
true.
finals.
doesn't matter. Yeah, and those small clinks in your armor and your style or how you go about it gets blown out into full on stomach size holes in your armor, and you're fully exposed, and before you know it you're on the ground going, what just happened?
Mm.
How did that happen?
And there's the brutality of finals, and there being no like revision, no second chance. Like I know this is
Yeah.
obvious. I know this. Everybody knows this. I'm not saying anything revelatory, but it just does feel so brutal after a game like that, where you go, no, we can do that better. Hang on, let us let us try that one again. Because I know, like, as much as I've said I'm satisfied and Brisbane were the better team on the night, all that stuff, I know that we can do better than that in so
Yeah,
many areas across that game for a longer duration. Like,
but
yeah,
the only way we know that is if we get to these moments, to have these games where we go, we know we can do so much better.
mm,
And the only reason we know we can do so much better is because we've been here before. These players have now been
yeah,
here for the first time, and now they're going, that's what's finals like.
yeah.
That's what a prelim's like.
I,
I'm more
I,
prepared next time. So
I suspect
yeah,
some real hunger next year. I
me
do
too.
wonder if we had got through and won this whole lot, got to the last dance and won it. I actually I rarely predict drop offs for the Cats after a big year, but I do wonder if we would have seen a massive drop for players like Manor and Dempsey and Humphreys to come in
This
and
is
go,
Nah.
easy.
oh, we just win it, I guess. Yeah. I think next year could have been a real down one, to be honest. I don't think it will be because of this scenario,
Yeah.
but I do think if we had 8
I
players
reckon
who didn't play last finals and they all got through and got a medal, I think you could be like, oh, sweet.
I reckon it could have gone the other way with the senior players. Like I think it could have been a similar like result of a bit of a drop off, but it could have been the senior players going, "Huh, that's good. Let's all retire
Yeah,
now."
yeah, yeah,
But
for sure. It
I think we're
would have
gonna,
been beyond perfection to have
yeah.
pinched that fifth one this quickly.
Sambo, do you have one last one that you want to drop? I know you probably won't join us for the Patreon section, so do you have something to drop, and then we'll do votes?
Only, I did. Well, I don't know if you guys saw the Fagin quotes, just briefly. If you did, I think that would be interesting to talk about in the
No, I
Patreon.
didn't see him.
But I'm not here, so we can always save it for the next week. But the thing I wanted to is just it's to other people, but it's to me as well, because my tendency. The game was made up of so many moments. There's so many replays where you're like, oh, that's right. We won that center bounce, and Atkins picked it up and thumped it, and Danaher like smothered it. There's so many of those moments that like define that game, and especially a game won by 2 kicks. And I'm just fighting my absolute like darndest to not let any of those moments in my head be umpiring. And I because I've seen a lot of talk about that. People saying, "Oh, you're whinging about the umpiring," and conversely, other people saying, basically that whinging about the umpiring. Say the umpires gave it to him, and like there's lots of moments in that game where I was frustrated, and it did feel, but I think with everything we've laid out, I think it's okay to be annoyed at the umpires in the moment, or like annoyed at a decision, all that kind of stuff. But at this moment, with this kind of hindsight, I think we have to acknowledge that you can't let that define the game. If you have let a couple of bad decisions take the game away from you, then you didn't deserve, like you didn't do enough to win the game. And I've seen it happen a couple of times with the Cats this year, where they let it get the better of them, senior players and young players, where the game slips away from them. And we've talked about the Bombers when we were the other end and the Bombers copped it. We were like, you're a professional team. You need to cop that poor decision and move on. And I do feel like some of those early decisions that were dubious or debatable, like I know what I think, but I'm allowing interpretation. They got the better of us, and I just think, just move on. Like, who cares? Was it a mark? Was it a free kick? Wasn't it? Just cop it and go back and punish them on the scoreboard. And I do think a lot of the team felt the way we felt because we were getting annoyed at the umpiring and frustrated. And I think that's, you can't help it as a fan sometimes. But I do think that, yeah, it wasn't just that, because once when we were letting ourselves get into that position, then we weren't doing enough to win the game. So yeah, I think I basically just saying I understand because I do feel it, but yeah, let's move away from the umpiring narratives if we can, and be above that on the socials and whatnot, because it's we should have kicked those 4 goals at the start, and then wouldn't have to worry about it. A couple of umpiring decisions could have rolled off the back,
as it did, for Brisbane. There were moments there where I went, geez, how did that not a free kick? There was a couple there. I thought we got away with some, and that's the thing. You tend to mold the events to the narrative as it goes. You're losing, and a dodgy decision happens, and it's like, well, that's bull. But Lions fans, of course, won't, and the Essendon one's a great example, Sambo, from earlier in the year, where one fan base sees something terribly wrong with the umpiring, the others are like, what do you mean? The umpiring was fine. The reality is the umpiring is consistently inconsistent because it's a really hard job. It's a really hard job. It's a really hard set of rules. It's constantly changing, and ultimately, when you lose, you feel like you've got the raw end of the stick, and when you win, you don't see an issue with it. So you do, as you said, Sambo, you got to respond in the moment and take control of what you can control. And I would agree. I think there were some veteran players who probably did let it get to them, and yeah, it's probably important that they don't do that. So let's do votes, chaps. I think we just whip through these a bit quicker tonight. We've nearly done a full hour of just the public show. Just like go through 1 to 3. Johnny, you can lead us off. Just like, it doesn't even have to be long on each player. Just a little thought on why they got a vote.
Ollie Henry, giving him my 1 vote. Pretty solid game by him. Yes, he should have kicked that first goal, but I think he came back and redeemed himself very nicely by giving us the chance in the end of the game. I think he kicked 4 goals, so he gave us the opportunity to win this game off his own boot. So good on him. Giving 2 votes to Tom Stewart. Tom Stewart game, absolutely brilliant. And then giving my 3 votes to a player that played half a game in Max Holmes, because, as Sam said, he was best on ground at that point, and I can't see another cat that was going to do better than Max Holmes.
Love it. Do you want to go one by one then? Sambo, what's your one?
Mine's also Ollie Henry. I think he was the one forward that, and I'm not copying it at anyone, but he was the one forward that I thought basically performed his role as well as you could expect. Missed 1 or 2, like you're saying, Johnny, and didn't clunk every mark, but I thought his role, he's not the Tom Hawkins replacement, and that was his role, and he performed it, and he could have won us that game. My 2 votes go to Max Holmes. Like you said, I do think he would have been my 3 votes had he played the full game, but he only played 53% of game time. So he was my 3 for a long time, to be honest, until I really sat down and just started thinking about it. But so I totally understand him getting the 3. But my 3 goes to Tom Stewart. Like, I think he was one of those players that I think let it get the better of him. And sometimes when he gets angry, it makes him really, really good. And sometimes when he gets angry, it can make him do a couple of silly things. And I think he did get the worst side of that last night. But beyond that, it's just a champion. And like, if we had won that game, we would be watching those highlights of that tackle, that chase down tackle, and the dump after it. And the spoils. He got 2 ridiculously athletic spoils. Like one of them was like a screaming. Again, I don't think you were there yet, Jake, in that the first quarter when he was like a starfish. Like they could almost do the falling. Like what is it? The shooting stars, because he was so spread eagle, leaping from the side with his knee onto the shoulder of the Brisbane player, and a perfect connection with the fist to knock the ball out. You know, he did well offensively as too, turned it over and took it up a couple of times. Like, yeah, I think if he wins that game, people are talking about how we won it off his back in the absence of Max Holmes and that. So, yeah, I just couldn't go past him, to be honest.
I went 1 vote to Brian Myers.
Nice,
Obviously
yeah.
kicked some sensational goals, but he also set some up, I believe. You know, I think you could pick through pretty much everyone's night and go, oh, that was a moment that, you know, and Brian certainly had his moments that in hindsight he'd probably like back, but, you know, 20 disposals, 5 tackles, a goal assist, 2 goals kicked, 350 meters gained. I thought he was excellent. 1 vote for him, 2 votes to Tom Stewart. I can't argue with anything you've said, Sambo, but
12 into
when I'm voting for best on ground, I've gone with Max Holmes because I thought he was our best player on the ground, and it was unfortunately just he was robbed of the last quarter by a dodgy hammy.
53% of game time. So like he was off
Yeah.
the ground for 14 minutes of the third term, and came back on and on for the fourth and was off again within, I think, 5-6 minutes. So yeah,
It's brutal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all from us on the public part of the show. We appreciate everyone who's jumped on board and watched or listened or subscribed or commented, all of it. We just really appreciate it. It's been a magnificent first men's season, you know, since this Hoops Crew partnership began, you know, early in 2024. It's been an absolute pleasure having you all along for the ride. What a ride it's been again. Like, geez, we're lucky. I feel lucky all the time. Wear your Cats gear. That's what I'll say. Don't be one of those fans that stuffs it away into the cupboard now. Get the beanie out, get the hoodie out, get the cap out, whatever it is.
I
Don't be
wore my
afraid
hoodie to
show
work
your
today.
colours. Yeah, you got to. Thick and thin, lose or win, whatever it is. I think that's really what it is. You know, how good is it to be a Geelong person? The words of Chris Scott.
Very
Like,
good.
it is fantastic, and we win together and we lose together, and I'm pretty sure we'll be doing a lot of winning together again in the very near future. And obviously, the W season only 4 rounds deep, and we've got a game of that to recap, a significant result for the Cats. We'll probably do that in the next day or two for you. So stick with us on the Hoops Crew Media Network. We're going to duck over to Patreon now and round out our final thoughts on this game. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, go Cats!
Go Cats!